A sobering reality is that you can do everything right with your own security and still get breached because of someone else's failure. Your security is only as strong as your weakest vendor. And in today's interconnected business environment, that means your risk exposure extends far beyond your own network boundaries. It goes into every third-party relationship you maintain. In this lesson, we'll explore why supply chain attacks have become one of the most effective strategies in the modern threat landscape, and what you can do to protect yourself. Former NSA Director Keith Alexander said the supply chain is the soft underbelly of our security, and attackers have figured this out. If we think about it from their perspective, why spend months trying to breach a well-defended enterprise when you can compromise one vendor and gain access to hundreds or thousands of their customers simultaneously? It's a force multiplier for attackers. The SolarWinds attack compromised a software update mechanism to infiltrate over 18,000 organizations, including major government agencies and Fortune 500 companies. A single point of compromise cascaded into one of the most significant breaches in history. There was the Kaseya attack, where ransomware operators targeted a remote management tool used by managed service providers, MSPs. By compromising one platform, they were able to deploy ransomware to over 1,500 businesses in a single weekend. The success factor in these attacks is the exploitation of trust relationships. When your software vendor pushes an update, you install it. When your MSP connects to your network, you allow it. And attackers are weaponizing that trust. There are different categories of third-party risk. Not all third-party relationships create the same type of risk. There's vendors with direct network access, and these are your managed service providers, MSPs, your IT support contractors, and anyone who can connect directly to your systems. A breach of their credentials is effectively a breach of yours. There are software providers in your technology stack. Every piece of software you run is a potential attack vector. This includes not just the applications themselves, but their dependencies, libraries, and update mechanisms. And there are cloud services holding your data. When you move data to a SaaS, software as a service, platform, or cloud provider, trusting their security controls to protect your information, then their breach becomes your breach. There are physical supply chain dependencies. Hardware can be compromised before it ever reaches you. Components, devices, and equipment can be tampered with during manufacturing or shipping. And the often overlooked category is your vendor's vendors. Your direct supplier might have an excellent security system, but what about their subcontractors? Risk can cascade through multiple layers of the supply chain. So each of these categories creates distinct vulnerabilities that require different assessment and mitigation approaches. To identify which vendors pose the greatest risk, there are warning signs you can watch for. If a vendor is reluctant to discuss their security practices or won't provide documentation of their controls, that should concern you. Legitimate vendors with good security are typically proud to share their certifications and audit reports. If there are vendors who cannot clearly explain how they would notify you of a breach, that's a warning sign. If they don't have their incident response procedures documented, that's another. If they don't know how they'd handle a security incident, then they're probably not going to handle it well. Never know, but that is the safest assumption. Pay attention to how do they manage access. They use multi-factor authentication. Do they follow least privilege principles? And can they tell you specifically who on their team has access to your data or systems? If they cannot, that's a big red flag. You also do want to consider their track record. Have they had previous security incidents? But not just that, how did they respond to those? A vendor who has been breached and handled it transparently and professionally may actually be a better partner than one who claims they've never had any security issues. It's often either luck or lack of visibility, and it can always change. So it's about how they handled it rather than whether if it ever occurred. You can systematically evaluate and manage third-party risk. Start by asking the right questions. Your downloadable resource for this lesson is a vendor security assessment questionnaire. It gives you a structured set of questions to ask vendors before you engage with them and on an ongoing basis as the relationship continues, because things do change. It's not one and done right before and then never again. The questionnaire covers the critical areas, their security certifications and compliance status, how they protect data, their access control practices, their incident response capabilities, and their own third-party management processes. It's important to note, don't just send out the questionnaire and then file the responses. You want to review the responses critically. Follow up on any vague answers. And for your highest risk vendors, those with access to sensitive data or critical systems, consider requiring evidence beyond self-attestation. So just because they say something, yes, we've got this, yes, this is good, that's not good enough. Provide evidence to us and have someone on your team who has more specialization or ability to understand what evidence to get or what the evidence means. Take a look. And if you don't have anyone, you could have a consultant, of course, that could take a look. And you could also use AI nowadays. You likely have dozens or even hundreds of vendor relationships, and you can't apply the same level of scrutiny to all of them, and you don't have to. You want to prioritize based on two factors: the sensitivity of what the vendor can access and the criticality of their service to your operations. A vendor who processes customer payment data and has direct network connectivity deserves far more rigorous assessment than a vendor who supplies office furniture. It seems obvious, but unfortunately there are many organizations that are trying to apply the same lightweight vendor questionnaire to both. For your highest tier vendors, go beyond questionnaires. Request the SOC 2 reports. Conduct periodic reviews. Include security requirements in your contracts. And establish clear expectations for breach notification. So the summary for this lesson is that your security perimeter does not end at your network boundary. Every vendor, supplier, third-party service extends your attack surface. Supply chain attacks have become so effective precisely because organizations focus on their own defenses while ignoring the risks flowing in through trusted relationships. The vendor security assessment questions from this course, from this lesson, to start evaluating your highest risk third-party relationships. In today's threat landscape, you're not just responsible for your own security, you are responsible for understanding and managing the security of everyone you do business with. Diligence. In the next lesson, we'll shift from understanding risks to quantifying them, examining how to translate these threats into the financial terms your board and executives need to make informed decisions.